yet he managed to run marathons every year and had been doing so for decades. He was in his 60s now and planned to run the next one. I asked him about what it took, and he was telling me about perseverance and dedication, things I'd all heard before. But then he used an example. He asked me if I enjoy classical music. He said, "That's the issue. Classical music trains you to listen patiently as the crescendo builds, as the message is developed and the conclusion is reached. Pop music is like a burger. Quick, instant pleasure wrapped within 2 buns. The hit from the sugar, salt and fat come quickly. So the essence and the enjoyment of music via pop music comes quicker. Is that necessarily better than the masterpiece that makes up classical music?" I hear my friends telling me stories, things that they've seen on social media, basic science facts we learn in school, dressed as profound insight. You see, the motivation of most creators is for instant attention, and the most consumers is for instant gratification. Their aim is not for societal advancement. But these days, the new algorithm comes in form of AI. And AI we regard mostly as a neutral, objective companion or advisor. It is not the calculator that sometimes we think it is, nor is it the human that we see it for when it communicates to us so naturally. See, its training is based on the internet, not always factual, true, authenticated, reliable knowledge. That's even before weights have been added to the answers that it gives us. There's a story about how ChatGPT started talking about goblins and gremlins. In people's chats, it literally started to talk about them unprovoked. OpenAI actually had to do some research into this. And what they found was really interesting. It wasn't because anyone had asked ChatGPT to respond with stories and anecdotes and references to goblins and gremlins in their answers, but it was because of an instruction they had given to behave unapologetically nerdy to some users. People thought the responses as quaint, but what it ended up leading to was ChatGPT responding in a positive feedback loop that made ChatGPT give responses that featured goblins and gremlins in many other users' answers. The worrying thing here was how stereotypes were decided, then propagated, and then infected the answers of ChatGPT and infiltrated the human mind. We think that we're going to it for objective answers, for neutral thought, but we don't know the inherent biases with which they've been designed. I'll give you an example. Have you ever been blocked on Reddit? It's pretty easy to get blocked on a community on Reddit because the rules are arbitrary, self-patrolled and self-policed, and sometimes auto-moderated. But since the models are trained on such social networks, it begs the question, what is it? What is the actual viewpoint on which they will express a preference when they give you their answers? Would you go to Reddit for the answers about everything in life? Probably not. Which brings me to the one thing that we are all too easily fooled by. We think that AI can do something that it can't. What it can't do is lean into what makes us human, the biases, the beliefs and backgrounds that make us human. You see, human experience depends on everything we've experienced through our senses and through our knowledge. We are not the product of an algorithm, but if we're not careful, we may become the mouthpiece for an algorithm. That's why we have to be careful with what we write into chat. Now, before you type anything else into a LLM, ask yourself the question that you're about to pose. Come up with your own answer before you ask ChatGPT to produce it for you, even if it's something you have no expertise of. Be ready to question the answer it gives, so you've already got an opinion, and so it's not directly influenced and possibly adversely by the answer you get from chat. Because your opinion, based on years of cumulative experience of living in the real world, will have some foundation, no matter how small. And then also, how can we develop that instinct for being right? Rely on long-form media, books and articles, pieces that give you time to reflect on the information that's being communicated. You see, with short-form social media, we're being hit with the burger. We're being pounded by highly processed thoughts designed to grab attention and give us the conclusion without us having to have thought through the facts that make up the conclusion. So we're relying on someone else's conclusion. Just think about it. When someone makes a reel, they are literally selecting the most engaging piece of information, not the most intellectually important, that cheese-dipped burger, without telling you all the other information you need to know before you take a bite.